All right, and welcome to the first South Coast End Zone of 2012. I'm excited. Are you guys excited?
Oh, yes, goosebumps.
Well, you're excited because you only have to come in for like 2 of these.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm excited though.
Laurie and I are the ones that have to come in here each week and face the music when we make bold predictions and strange theories and prophecies.
I'm gonna make a prediction right now. I'm gonna beat Buddy this year in the picks. I'm gonna go on record and say that I'm gonna beat Buddy this year.
How close were you last year?
How close was I? Games?
Not close.
No, it was close. I can't remember what the final tally. I think
until
it was
the opening kickoff.
I think it was under 5 games. So.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
That's close.
I mean, we still have to wait and see what's going to happen with all these teams. They still haven't played a game yet. So, but Buddy said some teams have been scrimmaging, and have you had a chance to see some of them in action at all, or?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen anybody yet, but I've talked to a lot of people, and
You've talked to people
I
who
know
know way
enough.
more than you do.
and I put a lot of my
have some
stories in,
sources
and she's
now, too.
already looked at them, so.
I have my sources.
Well, it seems like it's going to be an exciting year,
Yes.
if anything. And I think going into this, we should tell people that we'll be here every week for you to recap a lot of the action of what happened the week before, but mostly to look ahead at the games coming up each week. And you can catch us on the Standard Times website, of course, and on our own website, SouthCoastVarsity.com. And Laurie, I know that you're tweeting everything this year. Now that we're in the internet age here,
Yes.
finally.
At SC_varsity is where you'll find up-to-the-date news and notes for football and for all the other sports. When we're at games on Friday and Saturday, we'll be tweeting live scores from the games, stats from the games. So really, if you can't be at a game and you want to know what's going on, follow us on Twitter at SC_varsity. So.
And we're also on Facebook, and we want you to like us because we're insecure. So just like us at South Coast Varsity on Facebook.
Yes.
And the other thing, too, is we put the call out last year for people to tweet us and to tag us on Facebook and to send us their photos and their videos from the games. We didn't really get any last year, so you people are slacking. I mean, we know that hundreds of you are out at these games every week. We know that you've all got smartphones, and we know that you're proud of your kids and you're proud of your teams. Send us in the videos. Send us in the photos. We'll find a way to incorporate them.
Yep.
Because we've got all this fancy technology around here. We can do things like this. Ready? Watch this. That's you, Laurie. Sorry.
Hi.
Watch this. Highlight cam. What? Look at that. That's fancy stuff. So there we go. So that's why we need your stuff, because otherwise it's just going to be the same video running all season long, and that'll get boring. All right, well, let's dive right into things. I mean, we've got so much to go over this year. We'll start with the South Coast Conference, which, of course, is always super competitive. Even if it's a matter of 3 teams battling it out for first place early on, still they're going to end up beating the crap out of each other over the course of the season, and I don't think this year is going to be any different. Buddy, what do you think is the team to watch for in the South Coast Conference this year?
Well, I think Laurie and I both agree, which is unusual, that Fairhaven will be among the top teams in the league. I happen to think they're going to win it. I'm not sure Laurie thinks they're going to win it, but I'm sure she picks them to be 1 or 2. I think they're going to win the whole thing, and I think they're going to battle Wareham right down to the wire.
Now, I went to Fairhaven's practice last week. I'm doing the preview that's going to be in our football tab that comes out this Friday. And there was a lot of excitement. The kids are ready, especially the seniors. There's 13 seniors on this year's team, and a lot of them played as sophomores. So I feel like they're one of the more veteran teams in the area, along with Wareham. The biggest downside, I'd say, for Fairhaven is its lack of depth. If one of those kids that's in a starting role goes down, they're gonna have to fill the void. And not only, a lot of these kids are playing both ways, so they don't just have to fill, running back position. They have to fill, running back and linebacker. So I think depth is the one thing that could cost Fairhaven overall through the season. But it's going to be a huge jump from 2 years ago when the Blue Devils just won or didn't win any games, and then last year only won 3 games. So I think people are going to be, a little surprised. Maybe not surprised because everyone's kind of talking about Fairhaven being in the mix. But I mean, to be winless just 2 years ago and to be, in the talk for the SEC title, I mean, that's a huge, huge jump for this program. And I talked to Billy Pyers, and he's one of the seniors on the team, and he played as a sophomore, and, he really, wants to make this senior year, the biggest turnaround this area has seen. And he'll be in the backfield along with Kobe Edwards, who had a, standout lacrosse season. He's coming on strong. The big question mark is who's going to be at quarterback.
Well, it's not a question, really. You mentioned depth. Depth has always been a problem at Fairhaven High School, but quarterback is not a problem.
Yeah.
Either, especially in the depth department, because they have two boys who can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They each threw 6 touchdown passes last year. So whatever one starts,
Christian Braga and Jared Antel, either one.
Whatever one starts, is going to hold his own. And if, knock on wood, something happens to the starter, then they have the other one to come in.
Yeah.
So I don't think depth is a problem with every school, especially if a key player at a key position gets hurt. But I don't really think Fairhaven's worried about that this year. Not as much as they have been in recent years.
Yeah, I know they want to come out and make a statement, in their first game of the season.
Well, considering the statement they made in the last game of the season last year, yeah.
Yeah, beating Dartmouth. I mean, I talked to Rick White as well, and he said, he's glad he's not in the South Coast Conference because, Fairhaven is a team that's going to have to be reckoned with this year with the experience. The kids have confidence now. That it's not just going through the motions of learning the basics of football. I mean, they're out there and they're putting more plays in. It's all coming together just at the right time. And the conference, if you look at it, Pontiac graduated a lot. So did Dighton, Rehoboth, and so did Bourne. Three of the top teams last year. So this is a year where, hey, some of the more, the teams that are normally powerhouses are a little bit down. Fairhaven maybe could come in and win the conference. It's possible.
And the funny thing about that, the South Coast Conference gets Case back.
Yeah.
Case will be the 9th member of that conference after leaving for 2 years. And they may have the best quarterback in the conference.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
They may have the best player in the conference. That's how good he is. Furtado, I think his name is. Tyler Furtado.
Yeah, Furtado.
He's very good. So again, I think the majority of people will probably pick them for if not the bottom of the league, somewhere at the bottom, but they may have the best players, so they could surprise a few teams too. It's a great conference. May not be the strongest, but it's very competitive.
All right, well, why don't we move on to the next team that might be a threat for that SEC, and I got to think that Wareham has a good chance after last year, a 6-4 year. Was a little bit of a down year for them. They tried to do some new things on offense, which was part of the problem. I remember Dan Nault telling me before last season that he didn't really have football players; he had athletes. So that means, as anybody knows, when you have athletes in football, you go for the spread, and that's what they did, and it didn't work out. And when I spoke with him for this season, he said, "We're throwing all that out the window, and we're going back to what we do. We're going back with the double wing." So it seems like they're ready to go, Laurie.
Yeah, I know you said that they had Wareham had an off season last year. The year before that was even worse. I think they only won. I think it was one game. I think they were 1-10 the same year that Fairhaven was winless. So we're sitting here talking about the conference, contenders, and we're talking about two teams that 2 years ago had one combined win. I mean, it's really crazy, I think. But I think Wareham, really does have a great shot at winning the conference this year. Darian Fernandez is back, and anyone who has seen Wareham play, the last couple of years, they know that he is dangerous. Anytime he has the ball in his hands, that kid can make a big play happen. And I was at the game last year at Seekonk, and they were down late, and he ended up, I think he scored 2 straight touchdowns, over a couple of minutes in the fourth quarter. They won the game. I mean, he's a fun player to watch. But really, the key to the success at Wareham, I believe, is with their quarterback, Anthony Abbott. This kid is a really smart kid, and it shows on the football field. He makes all the right plays. He makes all the right reads. Just whether or not he can stay healthy, and he's also going to have a little bit of a boost in the backfield this year. Wareham got a transfer from Old Rochester. It's Elias Tobiah. He's coming over, and he had a solid year last year for the Bulldogs. So we'll see how he fits into that offense, especially out of the backfield with Darian. And that could be a nice 1-2 punch. Elias, though, I think right now, from what I heard from Tim, is he's been out most of the preseason with mono. So we'll see when he actually gets to to show Wareham fans what he can do. But I think he comes from a long line of, his family, there's, some stars in his family that.
Right, he's part of the Roach family, which has a long athletic legacy. His dad, Ronnie Roach, was a football player, and I guess his aunt is Rita Roach, who's the girl's second all-time leading scorer in basketball. So.
Yeah. So.
I think he came to Wareham on a 2-for-1 trade. I think with old Rochester. Old Rochester got the Phillips brothers.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're in old Rochester, and that's certainly going to help that team. But the guy I like at Wareham is Charles Faglia.
Yep.
And he has a sprained ankle or something right now, but he's a real good athlete. One who complemented Darian very well last year, and you've got him, and if and when Tobiah gets healthy, you're going to have 3 outstanding running backs in that backfield. And with, like you said, with Abbott at quarterback, they may have the best balanced backfield in the league. So I think it all depends. Will they be able to stop the speed of Fairhaven? Well, I think Fairhaven is faster, a lot faster than Wareham. Will they be able to stop them? I think when they play, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a fun game. Yeah.
I mean, from what I've heard, Wareham is probably, out of the two, Fairhaven and Wareham, they're more physical. I mean, is it going to be that battle between, brute and kind of speed?
I think so. I know Fairhaven has a couple of big kids. Ryan Baldwin is as good as any lineman you get. They have a couple of other guys who are pretty big. But just with Billy Pius and Colby Edwards, those 2 guys can fly. Yeah. And you've got a quarterback that can throw the ball. He's got a great receiver. Connor Flynn. So that's going to be a fun game when those 2 meet.
I'll tell you something else too that Dan Nault told me, and Dan Nault's a Wareham guy through and through, but he lives in Fairhaven.
Yeah.
He was telling me that actually the Fairhaven kids went on a new weightlifting program in the off season, and they actually came to an old Rochester Wareham weightlifting meet in March, and he said that both teams kind of thought that old Rochester was going to be the odd man out in this. They thought they were kind of the afterthought to this, and the Fairhaven kids just really impressed them with the strength that they put on just from the end of the football season. Yeah. So if they've committed themselves to being one of those big physical teams like Wareham's been, that was in March. So imagine what they must look like now in September.
Yeah, well, I know, going to Fairhaven's practice, I mean, kids are still talking about that Dartmouth win, and how much that just created this huge, enthusiasm with the program. And, kids were going to the weight room all summer. I mean, it just seems like, you can't really say one win is going to do it, but that win kind of did do it. And also the week before that, Fairhaven, I think, lost by only 5 points to Bourne, which went on to win the state title. So, I mean, the kids were riding both of those games into this offseason with a lot of them back. So, I mean, I think it's really going to be kind of I personally think a two-team race, between Fairhaven and Wareham for the title. I mean, it's exciting. 2 teams that haven't really had success in recent years.
Yeah, I agree.
I do have to point out, though, Highlight Cam is currently running some very old footage. Because, we're talking about Fairhaven, and Fairhaven's on the screen, so let's cut to it, and it's showing Scott Francis.
Yes, and Scott Francis is still the athletic director of the school.
He is, but he's no longer the head coach for our last couple of years.
Yeah, that's why we need more video, right?
Right, that's why you need to send it to us.
He hasn't gotten any taller in recent years.
He's taller than me right now, so...
Looks a little different than Rudy.
All right.
Okay.
So, but another team, of course, that can make some noise in the SEC and can definitely bring the physicality as well as the skill is Apponequet.
Yes.
And they're, last year they worked in a lot of younger players, and they're now a year older. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they've got some other talent coming in too as well. So, I mean, how are the Lakers going to shape up?
Well, I mean, the big name that they graduated, Nate Michael, I mean, this is going to be a kid's name who's going to be talked about in the school for a long time. He set enough records to have his name kind of plastered all over the record books. He has the most career touchdowns with 39. He has a school record for career rushing yards, 3,341. He's got the single season, I think, scoring title, the single season yard title for running back. I mean, this is a kid that, it's a huge loss that the Lakers, had when he graduated. But they do have, some young guys, up-and-coming guys. Nate's brother, Matt, will get some touches out of the backfield this year. He's a sophomore. And also Troy Nanfelt is the younger brother of Zach Nanfelt, who, we've heard the last couple of years at Aponequid, he played soccer and football and contributed on both sides. Troy will also be able to get some touches this year. He's only a sophomore too, but the Lakers do have a little bit of experience with Darren Levesque. That's another, Levesque is another name, we've heard of a lot from Aponequid with Daryl, his older brother from a few years ago. So there's some kids that really haven't, showed what they can do yet, but they come from, that football family, have older brothers that have been through the system and had success. So, these guys are going to be getting some touches. The big thing is that Aponequid does bring back their starting quarterback from last year, Cam Costa, who was just a sophomore last year, but he played, I think, almost the whole year at quarterback. So having that experience at quarterback will help with some of these young running backs. And Aponequid's line is once again good. They have good size. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be physical. Aponequid should, even though I don't think they're going to be up there, with Wareham and Fairhaven. They should, win a good amount of games this year. And, this might sound like a rebuilding year, but they do have some talent with some of the kids. They're just young.
Yeah, they don't really rebuild at Aponequid. They just keep going forward. They keep plowing ahead, and if they're not going to win the title, they're going to make sure some other teams don't.
Yeah. What do you think, buddy?
My turn?
Yes, your turn.
No, I think it's kind of funny where last year's starting backfield was Michael and Nanfeld.
Yeah.
And now this year's starting backfield could be.
Yeah.
The younger brothers. And I'm very impressed with Matt, the younger brother. He's starting off the same way Nate did in school. He just, I think Michael's, the big loss for Aponequid, Nate obviously was a very, very good offensive player, but defensively he was sound too.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to miss him. I think they're going to be hurting more on defense. They're going to feel the loss of some of their graduated seniors more on defense than they are on offense. And I don't know if they can keep up with teams like Wareham and Fairhaven. So that's why I think we both have them pegged for third, maybe fourth place in the league. Yeah.
Well, and then where does that leave Old Rochester then?
I would say Old Rochester is in the middle of the pack, but I think if there's going to be a surprise team, it could be them in the SEC. Bergeron, there's a Nolan. I get the Bergerons mixed up. There's about 80 of them. He's a starting quarterback. I thought he did a good job last year when he came in to take over and run. When they changed their offense from a passing attack to a running attack, he did a nice job. They have the brothers coming over from Wareham. One of them is a running back. The other, I think, is going to be a wide receiver.
And that's the Phillips brothers, Richie and Raekwon?
Yeah, Richie is the running back. I think they're going to be fine. I just don't know how big or how deep they're going to be. They've installed a new offense where they are focusing, totally on running attack. I say totally, or primarily. They'll throw when and if they have to, but. Again, I think middle of the pack is probably where they're going to be. From 3, 4, 5, they'll be battling for. That would be my guess.
I would have to agree with Buddy there.
That hurts.
Last year when I did see Old Rochester play a couple times, I felt like the team really lacked identity. They were a passing team, and then they'd focus on running, and then they'd have success in a game and pass with Mike Ashe. It just seemed like they didn't really know what they wanted to do, and at least this year they're gonna go with the run and focus on that, and I think that's gonna help a lot because I know they lost to Bourne last year by, I want to say it was 2 points at one point. They had some close losses to some quality teams, and sometimes when a team lacks that identity, that's the reason why they can't pull out those games. So I really think that they will be a solid team in the conference. They're not going to be at the bottom, but I don't see them at the top. So middle of the pack.
And that also leaves one other local team in the South Coast Conference. That's Greater New Bedford voc-tech. And they came out looking well last year, didn't they? And then kind of had some bumps in the road along the way.
Yeah, they won their first couple games, and I mean, they did graduate a couple key players, Tristan Clark, AJ Hogan, so they have those guys that have gone, but they have Corey Pont, who's back out of the backfield, Trevor Amenya, he's going to see some time this year, and I mean, the big thing is Tyler Sylvia, who started last year at quarterback, he's back, and they have, from what Buddy said, a huge line, so I mean, they're going to be able to push other teams around with their big offensive line, and maybe some of their skill players can make those big plays. So, I mean, I don't see, like Old Rochester, I don't see them at the top. I don't see them at the bottom. I see them maybe pulling out an upset win here or there, and finishing middle of the pack. What do you think, Bud?
Well, they may have, again, they could have the best offensive lineman in the conference in Dakota Warowski. He's only a junior now, I believe. He's about 6'1", 6'2", 270 pounds, and he's not fat. He's very, very, he's rugged, he's quick, and he plays good defense as well. If they can get production out of their offensive line, knowing Chuck Allaire, he'll keep the ball on the ground all 40 minutes. 40 minutes, yeah. And just pound it at you with Corey Pont and Trevor Mena. They can take it to you. And the thing about them is all they have to do is get in the red zone, and they have a terrific kicker in Justin Soares, who has kicked like 8 field goals in his career, and he's really good. And I think you're going to hear about him. They're going to win games. They're going to win games by 2 or 3 points just by pounding people and just getting enough points to win. So, again, like Old Rochester, they could be a little surprised. They could go up as high as 3rd place, I think.
Well, that takes care of the South Coast Conference, and I guess we'll move now over to the Big Three, which we only have one local team involved in that, but that's all right because they're the flagship team of this newspaper, I guess you could say. And that would be the New Bedford Whalers, and they're probably shaping up to have a pretty good season.
Yeah. Anytime you return a player who has a lot of varsity experience as a senior, he played as a sophomore, he can run for a touchdown, he can pass for a touchdown, he can throw for a touchdown. I think he even returned an interception for a touchdown last year. Punted. I mean, this kid does everything, and I'm talking about Mike Raposa. I know it's a team and you need all the players, but when you have one player like that, I mean, other teams are going to have to take notice. So it's going to be exciting to watch them this year with Mike Raposa. He's going to be the starting quarterback again. He picked up, last year at the end of the season, I think he played 3 out of the last 4 games at quarterback. He's just exciting to watch. He'll have a big boost out of the backfield with Mike LaJoy. The last couple of years he's played wide receiver. This year he's going to split his time between wide receiver and running back, so he's going to give the Whalers a big boost. Also, TJ Hernandez and Hector Diaz, those 2 guys are going to also compete out of the backfield for the Whalers. The big thing for New Bedford is they graduated the majority of their offensive and defensive line. So they got some inexperienced guys on both sides of the ball. We'll see how they come together and how they can open up these holes for these other guys to be able to make some big plays. It's always tough in the Big Three with Brockton. So we'll see if New Bedford can make it 3 straight playoff appearances. It's going to be tough, definitely.
Yeah, I just don't think they have the size to compete with Brockton, but you think that every year.
Yeah.
And they have speed, and of course, like you mentioned, quarterback Mike is terrific, and they also have the best name in the league, best name player, Lord L.
Yes.
Can't beat that.
Can't beat that.
And that's who I wanted to also mention. They have 3 transfers this year. One is Lord L. Jr. from Sandwich. Another is Stephen Azor. He's from Dennis Yarmouth.
So let's hit the third one, Laurie. Go ahead.
Alonzo
Guillaume. That'd be my guess.
Guillaume from Georgia. If we're saying your name wrong, let us know. But they have these 3 guys who, sometimes you don't ever get a transfer, so it's always nice when you get somebody new in. And from what, Dennis Golden was saying, all these guys should contribute. So, we'll see what kind of boost that they give the Whalers this year.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move over to the EAC. and that would be Bishop Stang. And Lori, what do you think will be the season for the Spartans this year?
I think it's going to be a learning year. They have a new coach in Ryan Sylvia, who is the school's athletic director. He takes over for Bill Kavanaugh, who's been at Stang, it feels like a million years. I know it hasn't been that long, but he has a new system coming in. He's a new coach. He's got new assistant coaches. There's going to be a learning curve. I mean, when any team does have a new coach come in, I mean, it's you don't always start off all on the same page. So there will be that learning curve. But Charlie McKeeman, he returns, and he was the defensive player of the year last year for the Standard Times. He had an amazing year on defense last year, and he came on late out of the backfield on offense. I think he scored 5 touchdowns late in the season. So he kind of brings them a boost on the offensive end, and you know how solid he's going to be already on defense. The big thing, is who's going to start at quarterback. I know that's kind of up in the air. Buddy went to practice, before the season started. I think it was between Luke Save and Mike Pratt. So, I mean, they still have some question marks of who's going to be fitting where. And I think that plays into the, new coach kind of moving people around. So, I mean, EAC is always tough. You have Fian, you have Somerset, you have Martha's Vineyard. I think Staying's going to be kind of middle of the pack there. They're not going to this year, contend for the title against, the Fians and Somerset. So.
No, Somerset is definitely the team to beat in that conference this year, from what I understand. Fian is always good, and Martha's Vineyard, you can't come off the island, so you're captive there. So they always turn out good players. So you look for, and thank goodness there's Coyle. So Stang has a shot of finishing ahead of Coyle, but hopefully they'll be competitive. And what I really think you're going to see Pratt start at quarterback, so they can take advantage of Luke Save and McKeeman in the backfield, because both of those guys can run. Defensively, again, they're going to go pretty much. Guys are going to go both ways. There's not a whole lot of depth. They played okay defensively last year, but not enough to beat those other teams. And I think it's, like you said, it's going to be the same thing. I think if they can jump ahead of 2 teams, that's a plus for them.
All right, well, let's move over to the old Colony League and Dartmouth. And, of course, I was just watching, highlight cam over there, and we just missed the Dartmouth highlights. But that's all right, because they were from, 2004. So we're still working on highlight cam. But how are things going to shake out for the Indians this year? Because, we're starting to see now a lot of those Indian players from the last 4 and 5 years making their marks in the NFL and the college ranks. What do we have coming up this year in the high school ranks?
Well, I took last year's roster after I talked to Rick White, because he said we graduated a lot of seniors. And I took last year's roster, and I sat down and I counted all the seniors. And they actually graduated 24 seniors from last year's team. That's huge. One was Trevor Leandro, the starting quarterback. I think he scored in every single game last year except for the regular season finale. They graduated Brock Tebow, wide receiver, 3 running backs, Isaiah Shaw, Devin Vile, and Denham Cousins. Those guys are all gone. So you don't have that senior leadership. The senior class this year is small, but there are some studs in it. One is Mitch Laranger, which if anyone that went to a game last year for Dartmouth, they heard this young man's name. I think he scored 11 touchdowns last year. I mean, he's just kind of that punishing back. He's going to be carrying a lot of the load this year, along with a young running back. He's a junior. His name is Tim Smith. He came on late last season. He played the last 3 games and scored 5 touchdowns. So he got some of that varsity experience. He's still young, though, but he's more of a finesse guy. So they're going to have that 1-2 punch, for Dartmouth. The big thing is the line. The line is pretty inexperienced. They did graduate a lot of kids off the line. So whether or not that line can kind of get on the same page and, find the right blocks in order to open up holes for Mitch and for Tim, that's going to be the big question. Whenever you graduate that many, you think the year might be a little down, but I mean, Dartmouth still has talented kids that have bought into the program. So I mean, the Old Colony League this year is only 3 teams. So, but when you look at it and you say, oh, there's only two other teams to beat, it's Bridgewater, Raynham, and Barnstable, two teams that are traditionally strong year in and year out. So Rick White said, it's going to be tough to win the conference this year, but they are playing BC High and King Philip on their schedule early in the season. So they're thinking if they can play some of these tougher teams, that might get them ready for Bridgewater, Raynham, and Barnstable later in the season. But it'll be tough.
What do you think, buddy? 33.3% chance of winning.
That's right, but I don't really know too much about their lines. I don't know how many people I think I saw them once last year. I don't know too much about their lines, but I know on offense there's going to be 4 names that's going to stand out. It's the 2 Laurie mentioned in the backfield. A new quarterback by the name of Dalton Soares, who is very good. He's a good runner and he can throw the ball. And his uncle is Todd Soares, who played at New Bedford High a few years ago, and I guess has been working with him on throwing the ball. And they have a great receiver in Nick Simonetti. So those 4 guys are going to carry the offense. If they get any kind of protection in their offensive line, they're going to put points on the board. So.
Well, you said you weren't sure about the line. They only have 1 returning offensive lineman,
Right.
Neil Toole. He's the only one back with it.
Right, I'm familiar with him, but they're the other. I don't know too much about their offensive and defensive line at this point, but I know the offense weapons are going to be good.
Well, I'm excited to see if some of these kids can kind of step in and make a difference. I think I saw Dartmouth play for the first time. It was either last year or the year before. That was the first time in all my years of covering them. So hopefully I can at least get out there one more time. Although,
are you putting in any requests?
We'll give you season
if
pass.
you can look behind me, that's where I'm tethered to every Friday night throughout most of the football season. So, and then on Thanksgiving they asked me to go out and cover a game when all I'm thinking about is turkey. All right, we have one more local team to talk about, and that's heading into this year's Mayflower League is Old Colony. And how are things shaping up for them? Because I know that they've had a change, kind of a change at head coach. It's a little bit of a flip.
Yeah.
It's a family thing.
It's a family thing. There's still going to be a Gilbo leading the team, but it's going to be Bryce, the son of Paul, who's been the head coach the last couple seasons. Paul is still going to stay with the team. He's going to be an assistant, but his son Bryce is taking over. From what I've heard, they're not changing a lot. Bryce isn't coming in and saying, all right, we're switching our offense, we're switching our defense. They're pretty much keeping all the same schemes intact, because there are a lot of kids that have been playing for the last couple of years that'll be on this year's team. One is the quarterback, junior, Jacob Pringle. He played, a fair amount last year. He's got some experience. Out of the backfield, they have Matt LeBlanc. He's a senior, and they also have Kevin Blaze, who's a senior, and I love his name. I just think, this kid should be, running track, because Kevin Blaze, that's an awesome name.
As long as it's not cross country, because they need him on the football team.
Well, yeah, but he could run, track in the winter and spring, right? But like every year with Old Colony, it's the numbers. Do they have enough numbers to, if there's a couple injuries? I know last season, the regular season finale, they had, 10 or 15 kids on the sideline in street clothes because they were injured. So they don't have that depth when they do have the injuries. The one good thing is they have started up a freshman program. So this year, as opposed to years past where they only have maybe 10 sophomores coming back, this year they have 20 sophomores coming back. So, they're building the program up.
The future is bright, but it's just getting to it.
Yeah, so, and from what I've heard, Bryce is excited, to take over the head coaching duties. He's young, he's enthusiastic, and then he's got his dad there if he's got questions, so.
And he gets to tell him what to do now.
That is pretty cool.
For years of retribution, I'm guessing.
And I guess the big thing is usually Old Colony opens against Trinity Catholic the last few years, and Trinity Catholic has merged with a girls' school, and they have a new, athletic director, and they didn't realize that they normally play Old Colony, so they scheduled somebody else week 1. So Old Colony will not have, as of right now, will not have an opening game the first week of the season. So they'll have to wait till the following week to open the season.
It's too bad, too, because now would be the time to get Trinity Catholic, when all those boys got stars in their eyes from having all those girls at the school now. Catch them all distracted.
I weren't sure those were boys playing on that team last few years anyway. Old Colony has beaten them in the last 2 or 3 years, opening day.
Pretty badly, too.
Yeah, well, no, 6-0, 12-0, or whatever. But, and then they've only won one other game in the last 3 years, and that was Tech, I think. But Jacob Pringle, he didn't play the whole season at quarterback last year, and he's a real good athlete. And he's a very good baseball player, and he plays basketball. And Matt LeBlanc scored 2 or 3 touchdowns for him last year, so they have some experience in the backfield. Again, like you said, it's numbers, but fortunately, you're not dealing with larger schools, like you are in the EAC or the SEC. So hopefully they can, tack on an extra win or two as opposed to their 1 win in each of the last 3 seasons or whatever.
So it's shaping up to be a very exciting season. It gets underway in just a few days. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday, and the games start. Is it Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
Friday. So we are going to have some brave souls that are going to be braving the.
As of now, that the games are scheduled. I'm kind of surprised that they're just still going to go.
Well, there's some that have been moved. Most of Apponequet's home games in September have been moved to 4 o'clock, or like they start this week, Saturday at Middleborough. But New Bedford moved their games to Saturday in September. Dartmouth is, standing on Friday at 7, and so is Stang. I guess Stang is going to follow Dartmouth's lead this year as opposed to in years past where Stang does what New Bedford High does. So that's a big thing. And voc-tech, they've moved their games to 4 o'clock on Fridays, the home games, at least through September.
It's still summer technically, and fall hasn't really started yet, but I'm kind of hoping to get a frost at least, so then we can kill these mosquitoes and have Friday night football like we're supposed to.
Yeah, I say just spray all over with bug spray and go out there, right? Right, buddy? Is that what you're gonna do?
No.
No, you're not gonna work after 6
Well, they should watch us from the press box.
Yeah, I mean,
She's in there with a citron of a candle.
New Bedford changes their games so the mosquitoes say, whoa, no games here. I think we'll move to Stang. It's just up the road. It doesn't make sense, but.
Well, what can you do?
So everybody can follow along with Buddy and Lori's picks each week in the newspaper. It's going to be a heated competition this year. Lori's vowing to finally come out on top.
Well, I know I'm going to beat Buddy because he already had a score for Old Colony playing week 1, and Old Colony isn't playing week 1, so I think that's a loss for you, Buddy. So I'm 1 ahead already.
They didn't win, you're right, but they didn't lose either. So.
Sure.
Yeah, but you picked them to win. Or no, you picked them to lose. What did you pick?
No, I picked them to win. Yeah.
Oh, so there's a loss for you.
Well,
Hey.
we'll have to have the panel of judges decide on that. But you can follow along with all the information on Twitter all week long at SC_varsity. Like us on Facebook, please, at SouthCoast Varsity. And, of course, you can always get in touch with us through southcoastvarsity.com, through sports at s-t.com, and then there's those old-fashioned things where you can make your voice go through them.
And if you're at games and you see Buddy or I, you can come up to us and give us some bug spray or water or...
You want to see Laurie, she's up in the press box.
I walk around enough.
Well, you have to, so that you can have all the fans of the show let you know that they watch it.
Yes.
So yeah, let us know, and definitely keep in touch with us all season because we'll be here for you all year. So we will say until next week, stay sports-tacular.